Cool. So, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
How was your morning? It's still morning where you are?
It's still morning, and I'm in Los Angeles, and we went to Disneyland yesterday with
Oh,
my
fun.
children. They're about to go off to college again um, in a couple of weeks, so we've been wanting to do some fun things with them. And
Yeah.
we were on the Disneyland lot for 12 hours, and we walked about 13 miles and rode most of the rides. And
Oh my
my
goodness.
God, you just had the best time. Yeah. So we were exhausted. Yeah. So
Yeah, I
just
bet.
recovering from that.
Yeah, it is. I've been to Disney World. I've never been to Disneyland, but I've been to Disney World a couple times, and it is fun but exhausting. It's a
It's
lot of
intense.
walking. Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to go back again next week. We got a 2-day pass. So.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm glad you get to do something fun during all this. I'm sure, normally stressful times, but also doing all this
Yeah,
press,
we
everything.
just, yeah, we wore masks. And when we were outside and there wasn't a lot of people around, we pulled our masks down. But when we were inside on the rides or inside any buildings, everybody was masking. And really, I think everybody was very compliant there. And they had people monitoring that and reminding people. So I think it was really good.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
So I'll get started in a second. I want to let you know where I'm writing and, what the magazine I'm writing for. It's called Ghouls Magazine, and it is newer and it showcases the best in horror from a specifically female perspective. So we're really interested in women creators and, producers, actors, and everything like that.
Great.
I just wanted to say personally, I'm a big fan of yours, and I especially love From Beyond.
Oh,
So
thank you. Me too. Yeah,
yeah,
that's probably my favorite role of
it's so
pretty much
good. Yeah,
anything I've done,
fantastic.
besides JAKOB'S WIFE. But yes, I have a special place in my heart for that movie, and the role that Stuart Gordon and Dennis Bailey gave me was
Mhm.
really amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. So speaking in terms of JAKOB'S WIFE, I wanted to first ask you about the figure of the vampire. You've played a lot of different kinds of roles in horror films, from the mad scientist and From Beyond and the matriarch and You're Next and
Mhm.
the villain in the most recent season of Creepshow. So I am wondering what was different about playing a vampire. Did you draw inspiration from any particular sources?
I wanted to do this movie because it was really a female centric film. Although initially, when I read the film, it was more from the perspective of Jacob,
Mhm.
and uh, and it was skewed a little differently, that he was taking care of somebody who was bitten by a vampire. And what would that do? The metaphor was taking care of somebody who had a terminal illness. So when I came on board, we decided to change the the um, the aspect of it and make it more from Anne's point of view, and make it a movie about a woman sort of coming into her own and having more self-awareness, and also putting an emphasis on the relationship of Jacob and Anne, because they've been married for a long time. And for so long, we didn't know how we were going to end the movie.
Mhm.
Would she would she would she bite Jacob and turn him into a vampire? Would she kill her husband and go off with the master
Mhm.
vampire? Would she kill the master and continue on with Jacob, or would she just leave them both? And that was, until you see the movie, you won't really know what happened. But that was a question that was really at the forefront of our minds all the
Mhm.
time through all the different rewrites. Um, and I really wanted to do this movie because I think those are, those questions just about a vampire. What does that mean? It's just, where does that take you? And we use the vampire as a metaphor for sort of finding yourself and your awareness of who
Mhm.
you are as a person. Those, those questions are eternal. They're as eternal as a vampire. Who are you? What do you want? What are you going to do to get it? What is meaningful to you?
Mhm.
So we just felt like telling this story through the guise of a vampire lens hadn't really ever been done before. I mean, we've seen a lot of vampire stories, but we wanted to tell this vampire story in a different way. So really what attracted me to the project was telling this story from a woman's point of view. Mm-hmm. And also because I really liked the writing and I liked what it had to say. And I knew it was a good role for me. And I've produced a couple of other movies with the focus on other people and other characters. And this was a movie I really wanted to do for myself.
Right. So speaking of like injecting the feminism within the film and really focusing on the female characters, I wanted to ask you about Bonnie Aarons playing the master, because I think it's fairly, you know, as you said, unique to have a woman in that kind of a role. Mm-hmm. I think just my own perspective, I was not thinking about it, but I suppose just assuming the master would be a man. But then when it turned out to be a woman, I was so excited. And I thought, well, of course, that makes so much sense given the feminist politics of the movie.
And who's going to give you that license to find yourself? Is a man going to give you that? I don't know. It's usually your women friends that talk to you. If you think about the master as being almost the inner voice of Anne herself, or her new best friend. Mm-hmm. Who are the people that you seek out as confidants as a woman when you're having issues in your life? It's more often than not my girlfriends. I'm very close to my husband, and of course he's my confidant, my ultimate confidant. But so often when I'm grappling with issues of identity, I talk to my girlfriends. Right. But I was assuming it was a man too, because it was written as a man. Mm-hmm. And even though we changed the dynamic of Anne and Jacob in the movie and made it more of Anne's story, it wasn't until Travis Stevens came on as the director and he did his director's pass on the script before we shot the film that he said, you know, actually he didn't even say that, because he gave us the draft, Bob Portal and I, who was my main producer on the film. He gave us the draft and I'm reading it and I realized that he had changed the gender of the vampire. And I'm like you. And I went, of course, that makes sense. Of mm-hmm. course, that's who it should be. It should be the woman that's giving you that license mm-hmm. to be the person that you always wanted to be. And we talked about it early on. Travis said to me, well, you know, who do you see in this role if we do get a female vampire? And there was a couple of people that I had in my mind, but the person at the top of the list was Bonnie Aarons. Mm-hmm. Because I also feel like Bonnie is an iconic presence in horror with, you know, playing the nun and, you know, in the Conjuring movies. But when I saw her in the movie The Nun, it wasn't really about the nun. It wasn't really about her. It was about, you know, the other characters, which is fine. That's the story they wanted to tell. But there's so many males that are iconic in the horror genre, like Freddy and Jason and, you know, Chucky. And although I think Don Mancini gave Jennifer Tilly a real great platform to be a woman in that franchise. I haven't seen the same in a lot of other horror franchises. And I thought, well, gee, they had an opportunity to really do something with Bonnie Aarons' character as the nun. And I just felt like maybe she was underutilized, or maybe, you know, that just wasn't the story they wanted to tell. But I thought, we need to see more of Bonnie Aarons. She's amazing.
She's great.
She's got an amazing face. Her presence is so engaging. She's just, yeah, and I know her and she's a friend of mine. We've been friends for a number of years. And I really wanted to give her a role that I thought was suitable for her talents and would showcase her in a way that people haven't seen her before. So when I brought her up to Travis and Bob, everybody was in agreement. They said, yeah, we think you're absolutely right, Barbara. Let's talk to Bonnie first and see if she wants to do it.
Yeah, she's phenomenal.
Right. Yeah.
And speaking of, you know, that relationship that Anne has to the master, which is so fascinating and ambivalent in some different ways, like it's this tug and pull between, because there's that antagonism, but there's also that compulsion that she has towards the master. And I was really excited to see, in addition to the really fun scenes it has about, discovering her new self, also there's these sexually charged scenes that are really exciting because I think that despite the fact that I think a lot of vampire movies deal with questions of gender and sexuality, you don't often see someone like Anne or someone who is in Anne's stage of life directly rediscovering her sexuality. So I'm wondering, what was that important for you as an actor producer to include in the film?
It really was. And I know a lot of people shy away from nudity and sexuality in movies lately, especially where we
Mhm.
are right now with the Time's Up movement and Me Too, and rightfully so. And I think in times past, women have been showcased in a very exploitative way. Um, and I think storytelling has come a long way for all of us since the 80s, and even movies that I was in, although I never felt that I was exploited, in a certain, in a certain sense without a strong character. But I do feel like there are some other women that I know that are in the genre that definitely were exploited just, in a physical sense. And um, I do think that sexuality and nudity is an important part of life. It's something we experience every day, all of us, and we have such an odd relationship with it. So if we can sort of change the conversation and make sure we use it in ways that really illuminate the situation rather than use it to sell tickets or exploit women or men, then I think it's an important aspect to showcase. And I do think in JAKOB'S Wife, it was important for me to have this one brief lovemaking scene where you both see the characters at their most raw and intimate and vulnerable with one another. So I didn't really have an issue with it at all. I thought it was an important aspect to showcase.
Yeah, I found it very refreshing. I, like you said, like it's been
Older couple too, Yeah.
yeah, in so many different ways. Like as you said, it's been sort of absent from a lot of films lately, but also, given the post Me Too movement, it's figuring it and presenting it in a different way is also really important.
Yeah, and I wrote an article about it in the next issue for Fangoria. I'm actually, that was my column. I have a column in the magazine, and I wrote about nudity in horror films and what I think of them.
Yeah.
And so you'll hear more of my thoughts on that. But I'm really glad that, and people are balking at it a little bit, producers and whatever, but we have what's called intimacy coordinators now, which everybody's been hearing about in film and television, and that we have an advocate on the set when that's happening, so that everybody feels comfortable. We're on the same page. We have direct communication about it. I haven't used one of those or been asked, if I wanted one. I mean, on JAKOB'S WIFE, I was the producer too, so we just did it ourselves. But I think that's great. I think it's really good that we have that protection now and that aid for everyone to have better communication about nudity and sexuality on screen. I think it's amazing. I'm really happy about that, and that was something that the Screen Actors Guild pushed for in our country, the Screen Actors Guild. So I just think hopefully the conversations will keep getting better and more illuminating, and we'll be able to, show this aspect on screen in a way that is going to further the conversation about the movie at hand and the story at hand. And I felt like that's what we did in our film. So that was important to me to get that right.
It's wonderfully done. And I think I'm out of time, but I just wanted to thank you again for taking the time to speak with me, and congratulations on the movie. It is really, really excellent. I enjoyed it so much.
Thank you so much.
So, well, I hope you have a great rest of your day and have some time to relax. Yeah.
Thank you.